Star Citizen blends beautiful graphics with a first-person perspective to immerse players into its sandbox universe. But with a steadily expanding scope and more features being added, getting into the game can become a bit more daunting for a new or returning player. The aim of this video is to get you set up and playing the way you want to, as quickly and painlessly as possible. I'm Forrester, and this YouTube channel is all about giving you useful or interesting videos around simulation-type games, including Star Citizen. This video specifically will cover a number of key elements for new or returning players, but since it's a complete guide, I've also included timestamps in the video description to help you find exactly what you're looking for. And if you're new to the channel, I hope you'll consider subscribing so you can be notified of future Star Citizen videos such as detailed guides, ship reviews, or location spotlights as soon as they go live. So firstly, and this is really important and that's why this section comes in before the video covers buying the game, Star Citizen is currently, and often controversially, in alpha testing. That means it's far from feature complete, although in reality much of the gameplay could make up the size of many other games on the marketplace. It means that a lot of things that may eventually end up in the game are not yet in the game. Critically, Star Citizen is constantly iterating and evolving, both in the feature set available to you as a player, but also in scope. You'll often hear the criticism of feature creep leveled at the game as more and more cool ideas are added to the project, but at the expense of increasing development time. And because the game isn't complete, you'll likely encounter bugs as you play. That could be as insignificant as walking past a load of characters standing on their chairs for no reason, or could be as disruptive as being kicked off the server, having to reconnect, only to find you've been killed in the meantime. You may also need to be aware that from time to time, because it's in alpha testing, progress may be wiped. And at time of recording it seems like there's no end date on the immediate horizon, so you might reasonably expect Star Citizen development to continue in such a manner, at least for the foreseeable future. All of that said, even in this state, Star Citizen can be an incredibly fun game, especially if you're playing with friends. It's often breathtakingly beautiful, and even without a high level of polish, draws you into the world. It's something I've been playing for hours every single week for much of the last few years, so with the right mindset you can really get your money's worth, but I appreciate that's not for everyone. Finally, on alpha testing, if you do decide to go ahead with the game, you can help to identify and fix some of those bugs as you go along. On the Star Citizen website, there's a section called the Issue Council, where you can help to report issues as they crop up and prioritize what you think are the most important bugs to fix. The first thing you'll need to do if you want to play the game is to go to the Star Citizen website at robertspaceindustries.com and create an account. As part of that, it's in your interest to enter a referral code, as it'll give you an extra 50,000 in-game currency called UEC for signing up. I've included my code in the video description, as well as a link to a randomizer which will pick somebody else's at random. Once you've created your account, you'll then need to buy the game. I'd suggest budgeting $50 to $70 for this. Star Citizen has a huge store page where you could spend thousands of dollars on virtual spaceships if you were so inclined, but for most people just starting out, about the $50 to $70 mark feels about right. What you'll want is a game package. This is what gives you access to the persistent universe or the MMO simulation portion of Star Citizen. You may also see Squadron 42 packages. That will be the single-player experience, but is set to be a distinct game, supposedly launching this year, albeit using the same IP and engine. The main options are the Experience Our Games section, which gives a sample of some of the most popular or topical choices, or the Customize Your Adventure to access the full pledge store. If going to the full pledge store, be sure to select a game package which gives access to the game. There's a sliding scale here with different ships on offer depending on your budget and what you'd like to do in-game. You might want to make some notes here and research each of the ship options and what it gives you. Every single one of these you will be able to buy in-game, All you're deciding is what your very first ship will be. Personally, I'd recommend the Avenger Titan in the Duelist Starter Pack or the Cutter in the Generalist Starter Pack. They're a little more than the most basic package, usually coming in at around $70 when there aren't any sales on, but there are usually sales a couple of times a year if you're hoping to bag a bargain. On the video footage you may see prices as a little different, as different taxes are applied in different locations, and I'm in a higher tax location. But the Cutter and Avenger Titan are really versatile starter ships. I've reviewed them on this channel before and given that verdict, as they let you try out most of the key gameplay loops to find out what you enjoy the most. Note that ship choice is often a very personal thing, and whilst I suggest the Avenger Titan and Cutter because of how versatile they are, if something else takes your fancy or budget constraints dictate a different choice, that's okay too. Be sure to do your research on the ship you want to buy. Ship review videos on this channel might be a good starting point, and also be sure to double check that the package you're interested in includes game access. It'll be listed as Star Citizen Digital Download or something similar. Once you've opened your wallet and sunk your cash, it's time to download the game. Depending on what you want to do in Star Citizen, you'll want to consider what controllers you might like. Star Citizen is fully playable on a mouse and keyboard and scales with different options all the way up to people with highly specialized hardware like joysticks and head tracking. There are plenty of other videos on setting up your hardware within Star Citizen, so to save you time I'll not repeat that here, but the most important thing will be to take a note of some key controls. Those will be your interaction key, which defaults to F for Foxtrot, your MobiGlas, which defaults to F1, and your ship movement keys across 6 strafe directions: forward, backwards, up, down, left, and right. You'll very likely begin to use more as you use your ships and steer yourself towards more specialized gameplay, but those basics will get you flying. When you load up to the main menu, there are 2 key options: the Persistent Universe and Arena Commander. The Persistent Universe is the simulation, massively multiplayer online type experience. Arena Commander is a set of arcade game modes between space combat, first-person shooter, racing, and some others, and is a great game mode to be able to practice. I'd highly recommend loading up the Arena Commander Free Fly option to try out what it's like flying a ship and testing your controls before launching to the Persistent Universe. You don't need to know a lot as it'll spawn you into your ship ready to fly, so just a quick forwards, backwards, moving around kind of thing. On the main menu is also a link to the guide system, which can be a really helpful way to learn more about the game. Clicking the Find a Guide button launches the Star Citizen website, where the guiding system helps you connect with another player who can teach you about a certain element of the game that you're interested in. As your game time progresses and you're looking to expand your experience of Star Citizen, that can be a handy tool. When you do click into the Persistent Universe, you'll create your character, but also be offered the chance to use the new player experience. After selecting a home location, you'll be guided through your first 15 to 30 minutes or so by automated in-game prompts, which is worth doing when you're just getting started. As far as where you choose to base yourself, as a new player it doesn't matter too much, but generally my advice would be to stick to Stanton. There are choices in the Nyx and Pyro system, but Pyro and Nyx are designed to be a little more lawless, and the travel distances involved are greater, which can be more of a challenge for a first-timer. If in doubt, selecting Lorville on Hurston in Stanton might be a good choice. This is just where your home base will be. You'll likely end up visiting all star systems at various points in the game. Once you've selected to launch, be prepared that it might take a minute or two to load into the game. That's entirely normal. Once you're connected to the server, there are no loading screens, even as you cross the entire star system or blend between planets, so the trade-off of a slightly longer load screen to begin with seems worth it. For first launch, you might also see that the game optimizes shaders. I usually wait for that to finish before joining the server, although you don't have to. If you followed the new player experience, then the first sight you'll see will be your bunk as you wake up in your bed. That tutorial will give you cues as to what to do at each stage. If you didn't opt for the new player experience, you'll likely spawn into your hangar. Find a terminal to spawn your ship. You'll need to claim the ship to your hangar before retrieving it to bring it up in a big elevator in the center. If you're following the new player experience, don't be surprised if the ship listed isn't your own. The tutorial gives you a temporary loaner ship whilst you go complete all the tasks, but you'll get access to your pledge ship once you finish the tutorials. After that, you're free to explore the game. You could hit the shops by heading to one of the side elevators in the hangar and going to the spaceport, or you could head to your ship to explore the verse. We'll get to launching and getting airborne in just a moment. If you're anything like me, you probably use your smartphone for organizing your life, and your MobiGlas is your Star Citizen equivalent. You can access it by pressing F1, and it's your one-stop shop for getting space directions, accessing contracts, talking to your friends, changing the equipment on your ship, or refueling your ship. Everything in Star Citizen is in first-person perspective, meaning from your character's eyes. So, you can access your MobiGlas whether you're sat on the train, walking around an alien moon, or in the cockpit of your spaceship. Star Citizen operates an inventory system whereby any items you own in-game need to be stored somewhere. By default, that'll all be at the location you selected as your home planet, and you can see your items by pressing F1 to get to your MobiGlas and then using the Assets tab. It's important to know because if you buy weapons or armor or such things at the different shops in the game, you'll need to be at the same location as them to use them. If you are buying things to use, remember to load them up on your person or ship in order to use them. You can get access to your items through various item retrieval terminals or the freight elevator in your personal hangar, and from there move them to your person or aboard your ship. But accept that if something happens to your person or ship, those items could be at risk. As of patch 4.6, items you're wearing will generally remain safe, but that's expected to be a short-term change while some of the game mechanics are further developed. So, now you've found your ship, used the interaction key to get aboard, and you've found your pilot's chair and climbed in that too. Use your interaction key again to start the ship up. The easiest way is by selecting Flight Ready. That interaction key is going to become much more useful now that you're in the cockpit. You'll be able to use it to manage the little screens in front of you, as well as toggling various switches. Once you're ready to set off, you'll need takeoff clearance, which you can get by switching one of the screens to comms and finding air traffic control, or alternatively, in your MobiGlas. Hit the button next to the relevant ATC and you should hear takeoff clearance. Alternatively, you could also set a custom hotkey in the controls menu, which is what a lot of players do. Helpfully, if you're in a hangar, that'll also open the doors. I'd like to say to take it steady to begin with, but in reality sometimes the hangar doors will try to close on you, so just get out of the hangar once the doors are open and then take it steady. You'll do that by pressing your strafe up key, which you bound earlier, then strafing forward or continuing up. Quickly explaining your heads-up display in the cockpit, you'll see your speed on the left, and this speed is much lower whilst your landing gear is down. There are currently two main flight modes or master modes. They are SCM for combat and more intricate flight, and NAV for longer distance fast travel. SCM will generally give you the most maneuverability, whilst the highest speeds in NAV will let you traverse distances more quickly. Nav mode also disables your shields. On the right-hand side of the heads-up display when you're planet side, you'll also have an altimeter which shows your current altitude. To escape the atmosphere, you'll want to increase this to over 10,000 so we can hit quantum travel. Different planets have different minimum altitudes for this, but you'll get used to that as you get more experience, and at least 10,000 is a good general guide. If you can't quantum travel, get a warning message that says in atmosphere, and that's your cue to keep climbing. Quantum travel is your semi-quick travel in Star Citizen. Your speed is affected by the quantum drive you have equipped in your ship, which you can see in your MobiGlas, but expect most journeys to be between 2 and 7 minutes. You don't have to do anything once you're in quantum travel other than sit and wait for the distance to run down. You can activate your quantum drive either by entering into quantum travel nav mode, by default the B for Bravo key, or by your interaction menu to select spool quantum drive. After a short warm-up, you'll be able to hover over the various destinations available by pointing your ship at them. This will then calibrate the drive. After a short calibration, just hold your quantum travel hotkey to make the jump. To begin with, I usually jump to an orbital marker, which are named OM with a number, or to an orbital space station, such as Port Tressler, just to get out of atmosphere. You can also use your MobiGlas to set a route to a specific destination with the F2 key. I'd highly recommend Everest Harbour around Hurston as a starting point. There's a number of missions available which scale fairly well to starter ships. But at this point, the whole of Stanton, Pyro, and Nyx are available to you, although I'd recommend sticking to Stanton whilst you find your feet. You'll notice that your fuel stores will diminish in quantum travel. At some point you'll need to stop at a space station or landing pad to refuel, which will cost you money. Once you land on a pad, you can access refueling through your MobiGlas, again defaulting to F1. This is also the method you'll use to repair or rearm your ship if you've been in combat or suffered an accidental denting as you learn to fly. You'll also have personal expenditure, as water and food needs will come up on your bottom left, which you can find in various shops around the place. And also oxygen, because if you're somewhere without a breathable atmosphere, you'll need to wear a spacesuit. For now, oxygen will regenerate automatically if you're in a location with an atmosphere, like a space station, ground base, or your ship. Since we've covered the ways in which you'll spend money, that leads rather neatly on to how you'll make money. Oh, and if you're finding this video helpful, please press that like button. It really helps to let me know what videos you're finding the most useful so I can know what to make more of in future. One of the easiest and most accessible ways to make money in Star Citizen is via the contracts menu. You'll find this in your MobiGlas. There are lots of different types of contracts depending on the sort of gameplay that you're interested in. If you're going to take one of the combat contracts, be sure to read up on the keybinds around targeting and using the weapon systems. Hauling contracts are probably similar to a gig economy delivery job, where you pick up crates and drop them off elsewhere. They're really helpful in that they give you experience of flying, landing, and seeing different places around the verse. They're usually low threat and low risk, as you don't carry any personal capital outlay. They will require that you have physical space aboard to haul the cargo, so some fighters may not be appropriate choices. But the Avenger Titan and Cutter that I recommend both have small cargo spaces available for this. Bounty Hunter and Mercenary contracts involve finding and dealing with miscreants, although the finding part is usually as simple as following the marker. Read the mission description to figure out if they're space or ground-based. They're helpful for combat types but can carry a little more threat and a risk to your ship with repair costs. But helpfully, as with the other contracts, there is little to no personal capital outlay. Some of these contracts involve hunting down other players, and if you're looking to do that, I'd highly recommend searching some PvP guides. Avenger 1 is a good place to start. Be sure to check if your mission is ground-based, as you'll need to bring a personal weapon with you, which you'll need to buy with credits from a store in-game, or alternatively loot. Some contracts require you to build up reputation with a specific group in order to progress to the next tier. You can see your current reputation, you guessed it, in your MobiGlas. Higher difficulty contracts will be a little more risky or require more skill from you, but generally will pay out more. You may also see in your Contracts tab to toggle to Unverified contracts. These are, how should I say this, a little more sketchy in terms of legality. So for these contracts you might need to be comfortable skirting on the wrong side of the law, which we'll cover later. Finally, on contracts, some contracts will involve specialized ships, such as salvage contracts, which will require you to have a salvage ship in order to progress. For ships that have cargo storage available, it's also possible to make money by trading. You buy cargo at a low price, then go sell it at a higher price. Many outposts, stations, and cities have trading consoles with a buy or sell tab, and you select your ship and then what you'd like to buy or sell. For many players, this is how they make their fortune in Star Citizen, but there are some caveats to be aware of. Firstly, the starter ships have very small cargo bays, so you're only likely to be making very small profits on each run. For many of the starter ships, it will be much more economical to run hauling contracts initially instead. Secondly, you have to pay for the cargo yourself, which means that the cash you sink into cargo is at risk until the moment you're able to sell it. If your ship is destroyed with cargo in it, that cargo could be destroyed or perhaps left floating in space. And whilst piracy isn't always the most commonplace problem in Star Citizen, it's also very possible that you could run into another player who would be all too happy to destroy you if you didn't pay up, or sometimes even if you did, or just likes to see your ship explode. Many locations also have cargo elevators held externally which can hold additional risk when loading or unloading the ship. Mining can be a fun way for many people for making money in Star Citizen for those who don't want to get into combat, and for such players I'd wholly recommend it. Mining in Star Citizen is quite a detailed minigame after you've scanned for ore, and the first mining rover is relatively cheap and can be unlocked after a few hours of running missions. Or ship-based mining is fairly accessible by renting a prospector using in-game currency. Mining can also be quite profitable and is very low risk, as all you can really lose is your time invested. I have a more detailed video available on mining, but the key options here are the rentable Nomad or Cutlass combined with a rock mining rover, or a rentable Prospector, which can give you a flavour for the gameplay loop. Red Monster SC on YouTube and Twitch is a fantastic resource for all things mining, with some tutorial and guide videos, as well as handy cheat sheets, which are incredible for any aspiring miner. Another good peaceful moneymaker is Salvage. For the most part, you'll need one of the salvage ships, the Reclaimer, the Fortune, the Salvation or the Vulture, some of which can be bought in-game but require a little starting cash first in order to do so. So for the purposes of this guide, it's sufficient to mention that Salvage is a really good option for making money, but for new players is often out of reach initially, at least until you've made a little money through some of the other methods. If you are interested in trying out more of the salvage mechanics, maybe try reaching out in in-game chat to see if anybody needs a second person, as it's a loop that really lends itself well to having more than one person, or alternatively perhaps use the guide system to find somebody to help you out. This is my favourite game loop, but does require a highly specialised ship to enjoy it. One great way of earning cash, however, for pretty much any new starter is by picking things up to sell them. Whether it be consumables found across the verse, cargo you find on destroyed ships, or loot from crates in FPS bunker missions, you can transfer things to your local or ship inventory and then sell them to various vendors across Stanton. Larger ships can carry more inventory, but even small ships often have a decent amount of storage to get by with. If you're looking to do this, it might be worth investing in a backpack or storage crate from one of the shops so that you can carry more to your ship in a single trip. One of the best things that you can do as a new player in Star Citizen is set yourself a goal to work towards. You might like to go out and explore different locations, and I have a series of location spotlight videos which might give you some inspiration. Or you might like to join an organisation to fly with friends and experience multi-crew ships, so I've included a link in the video description of my organisation which welcomes new players. But for most new players, their first goal will be to work towards their next ship. For economic players, I'd recommend aiming for a Greycat Rock at just over 100,000 credits. The Rock as a mining rover gives you a good, solid income and can be used to start building up a capital base, accompanied by a ship to carry it, like a Cutlass Black, which can be rented cheaply. Then I'd aim for either a 1 million credits Golem for continuing mining, a 1.9 million credits Fortune for salvage, or a 1.6 million credits Hull A as a first cargo hauler. For ship combat players, I'd suggest working towards an Anvil Arrow. It's a really versatile and forgiving light fighter, able to handle the vast majority of combat missions for 2 million credits. And for ground combat, the C8R Rescue Pisces for 550,000 credits is an excellent choice. But for all of these choices, there are lots of options available, so feel free to do your own research and find what might be a good fit for you. Remember, most of these ships are currently available to buy in-game, so you don't have to spend any more money to get access to them, at least for now. The game is in alpha, and so from time to time your in-game purchases might be reset, but largely that seems to be a fairly rare occurrence in recent history. Logging out when you need to is part of the game too. If you just quit the game, you might assume that you'll log back in at the last space station or city that you visited. Your ship, however, is likely to remain where it is, so you might need to file a claim when you get back. Alternatively, if your ship is equipped with a bed, you could use that bed to log out. That way, hopefully, when you come back in, you'll be right back in your ship where you left it, unless it gets destroyed shortly after logging out. Whilst you can reclaim your ship via insurance, you'd lose any cargo or items that you're carrying aboard, so it can be a bit of a pain. If you can, I'd always recommend heading back to a space station or city in order to log out safely. If you are killed or your ship is destroyed, fear not, the game isn't over. You're sent back to a hospital bed in whatever your home planet is to start up again. If your ship has been destroyed, you can get a new one by filing an insurance claim at no extra cost. You can do that by visiting a ship spawn terminal, like the one you originally called your ship at, and hitting the claim button. Then you wait for the timer to run down. The timer will be longer for bigger ships and shorter for smaller ships, and can be expedited for a fee should time be a challenge. As before, being killed means you'll lose any cargo aboard the ship, as well as any weapons, armor, or other items in your ship inventory. There's a chance you might be able to get some of that back by heading to the point where you were destroyed to pick up the gear or cargo. There's even a marker in your HUD to show you where to go. But a word to the wise, if you were killed the first time, there's a good chance a second engagement might not go so well, and equally, if there's another player involved, there's a good chance your stuff might already be gone. Sometimes some of you might be tempted to find out what happens if you do something a little naughty in-game. There's a feature called Crime Stat, which gives you a criminal rating if you break the in-game laws. I'll not go into too much detail, there are more nuances such as where you commit offences and if the authorities have their comlink up and running, but suffice to say there are likely to be in-game consequences if you misbehave, including an in-game prison loop, and so if you're thinking of running a little rogue, you might find it helpful to read up a bit more about the criminal gameplay loops first. And finally, there are different gateway space stations which link to jump points. At time of recording, the only 3 systems in game are Stanton, Nyx, and Pyro, but more are set to follow at some point in the future. To swap between systems, you'll need to go to the relevant gateway, for example, going to the Pyro gateway in Stanton to jump to Pyro. From there, find the actual wormhole. It's usually easy to spot visually, but from within nav mode, there are also UI cues to guide you. Head to just in front of the wormhole, remaining in quantum travel mode, and you'll see the UI change to reflect switching to the jump process. Depending on whether you're the only one jumping, you may also need to activate the wormhole by left-clicking to fire a burst towards it. Another click will start your jump and suck you in, at which point it's a flying minigame, whereby you need to stay in the center of the jump tunnel and avoid the obstacles. Hit too many or stray too far, and the jump tunnel will kick you out, dumping you on the edge of either the system you're traveling from or the system you're traveling to, depending on how far you got through. Keep on the straight and narrow, however, and you'll be rewarded after a short flight by being deposited into the new star system not too far away from the gateway station. But it might be helpful to consider whether you want to make that jump just yet, especially for those considering exploring Pyro. Pyro is a more lawless system with longer travel distances involved, which can make it less new player friendly. Speaking of new player friendly, I hope you found this video guide useful. If so, please press that like button and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see future Star Citizen videos. And if you have any questions not covered by this guide or feedback, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, that should just about cover the basics, so it just remains for me to say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy the game.